Hello and welcome to another episode of Words with Myself. One of the major consequences of a globalist society seems to have been the loss of community. Particularly in the West, we have become a mass of individuals, and even our family units have shrunk. A typical family now is either a single or dual parent family with some kids. If they're lucky, they have some involvement from their parents or the grandparents. But outside of that, almost all other roles have become capitalized. So a nanny, for instance, is now a job, or somebody to babysit or look after the kids or help raise them, that's monetized, and you have to pay for that now. Whereas traditionally, that would be done as part of the community. Let's say you had a village and you had a number of people in that village, and while people were working, all of the kids were sort of together. There was this sense of community raising, which largely doesn't exist anymore unless you pay for it. But because that relationship is monetized, it starts to strip away certain elements that would make it a real, true relationship. And I think that the money aspect replaces love. And you can't take that element out of something as essential as child rearing, for instance, where the ability to then give that love to those children then becomes a crossing of a professional boundary, not like something where a grandmother could give, for instance, where a grandmother could love and, build that real bond with her grandkids. Someone who was employed as a nanny wouldn't be able to give that same kind of relationship. So a lot of kids grow up without that relationship. And then you take into larger consideration things like a single parent household, where that would be a further relationship that was stripped away. So the amount of relationships that you can have, those close bonds with family and with people that feel like family, whether that is blood relatives or whether that is part of a tight-knit community. And those bonds are either left missing or they're supplemented with something that isn't as appropriate or effective. And that's looking at an individual family unit. But when you think about a community as a whole and you have multiple family units, they also all miss out, not just on a micro, but on a macro, because all of those parents have relationships with each other. All of those kids have relationships with each other. They all grow up together. They all have support. They all have friends. They all have this thing to tap into. Whereas now kids grow up very much isolated. Even if they have parents, their parents are the only people that they really form a proper relationship with. And as you get older, you might develop friendships, for instance, but without some strong templates to kind of base those relationships off of, without seeing what real friends should be like, without seeing what love should be like, without seeing what trust should be like, without these examples of healthy relationships, everyone sort of figures it out for themselves. And often there's a lot of pain and suffering associated with that. And that's not to say that people that grow up in a tight-knit community don't experience the traumatic formation of relationships, but I think it's certainly reduced. And if things like that do fail, there is always that backbone, that fabric to fall back on. You aren't on your own. Whereas if you don't have many friends or you don't have any close relationships in a modern society, it's very easy for you to become completely cut off from the world, completely sheltered, to not interact with anyone. You order your food on your phone, you don't go out, you stay in and watch films, you don't experience the world, you just shut yourself away. And that is becoming increasingly popular as a choice of lifestyle. They don't like the world, so if you don't like the world, you shut yourself away from it. But that's sort of saying there's lots of bad out there and I'm going to cut myself off from that bad. But in doing so, you have to cut yourself off from the good. There is lots of good people out there. There is lots of good experiences out there. There is things to see. I haven't traveled around the entire world, but I've been very fortunate to travel a lot. And I have seen the most amazing landscapes. I've seen places that are incredible. that are so vastly different from what I'm used to experiencing. And yet, despite this knowledge that something very, very different, that different cultures, that different lifestyles, that different landscapes all exist outside of where my life exists and my environment, it's still very easy to forget. And you focus on the micro, you focus on where you live and the people that are around you and the lifestyle that people are around you have. And you get trapped into this mode of living because it's what you see every day. It's what's all around you. But that part isn't fixed, and being disappointed or being unhappy with where you are shouldn't mean that your life is terrible or that there are no other options for you, because there is lots of world out there. There is lots of things to explore and lots of people that live in drastically different ways. And if you are unhappy with your life, you do not have to live your life the way that you are living it or live where you are living. Because as much as I'm a big believer in doing the work and being introspective and, really figuring your own ideas out and your own worldview, I very much still acknowledge the fact that your environment has a huge impact on you. If every time that you stepped outside, everyone was really friendly and welcoming and said hello and asked you how your day was and was genuinely interested in getting to know you, your experience, your day-to-day experience would be so drastically different. And yet, in communities in Asia, for instance, that is the common day-to-day thing. Even if you're a stranger, they'll still be really happy to see you. Everyone has this kind of different attitude. It's not like the London Tube where no one talks to each other and everyone's looking at their phone, Everyone is just, it feels like everyone's just so happy to see you. And it's such an amazing feeling. Like, it makes you feel uplifted. Just the fact that people want you in their presence and that people are happy that you are around and that they take notice of that fact that you are a part of their community, even if it is just for a short moment in time. They have made you part of their community and welcomed you in. And it's such a different way of experience than where I live, where people largely ignore each other. They don't really take much notice of each other at all. And if somebody does take notice of you, you almost think that there's going to be a confrontation or, they're doing something that you don't want them to do. Someone coming and talking to you out of the blue is seen as almost an inconvenience. You're like, what do they want? Have a chat or be friendly would probably be the last thing on people's minds if some stranger went to approach them. They would be thinking all these other things about, I wonder if they're going to rob me or assault me or, shout at me, or if they've got a problem. It would all be sort of negative. And that's certainly not the case for all of England. In fact, up north, I find people very friendly. People are more traditional and they're more open to conversation and having a chat, and they want to have that kind of human interaction. Whereas the further you go down south or anywhere closer to London, you're going to have this kind of drastic change in people's public opinion. Like, they don't want to be near people. They don't want to interact with anyone that isn't a part of their immediate circle. But I think the thing for me is I believe that it's spreading. And from what I can see, it is spreading. People are becoming more isolated. People are becoming more detached. Community is shrinking. People that have a network of people is shrinking. There is no sort of communities that are spreading and developing and evolving that people really want to get a part of. At most, people might have a hobby and they have a club behind the hobby, and that's sort of their friends, and then they have, a wife or a husband or a partner at home, and that's sort of their whole life. That is their experience of community. There is a book called The Island by Aldous Huxley, and it's a very good book for anyone that would be interested in reading it. And I won't give any spoilers, but there is a community on an island, and they live in a very different way to the way that is widely accepted in the West. The traditions and the rules and how they deal with things like criminals and all that kind of stuff is very different. And yet, when you're reading it, you think that makes so much sense. It doesn't seem backwards, it seems forwards. It seems like this makes a lot of sense. Like, we should start modeling our society on something like that. Yet, it does only seem to work because the society is small. I think instead of dealing with the sheer number of people on the globe, we don't need a bigger unit. We need smaller communities, smaller self-governing villages, if you like. Instead of finding a model of human existence that works for everyone and all agreeing that this is the perfect way to live and that we're all going to abide by the same rules and live in the same way, we should actually go the opposite way and allow people to form their own communities and encourage that. Encourage people to live together and to share their wealth and to pool their wealth together in order to achieve what they want to achieve. You know, if everybody, even just the people down your road, your neighbours, for instance, you probably have around 30, 40, maybe 100, maybe more neighbours just on your road. And if all of you pulled everything together and just worked as a community, imagine how much stuff you would have access to. You wouldn't need 400 cars. You wouldn't need all that stuff if people were open to sharing within their community. And you're obviously not going to find that community with just anyone that you put together. But I think aiming to build that community is one of the strongest acts of rebellion that you can have right now. I think that is the one thing that is being stripped away from us. And to build it in the face of all this adversity that they spread, in everything that they do to isolate us and keep us as separate units. The absolute number one most rebellious thing to do is to have community, to build together, because strength is together. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how smart you are or how strong you are or how capable you are. As an individual, you are nowhere near as powerful or as capable as a unit. And when you have good relationships, when you build strong social fabric, it's not just 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. Everyone is multiplied. It's all compounding and growing together. Just like when you have a relationship with someone, you don't really become one person and that sort of makes two. Instead, you become like 20 times because you're both exponentially getting better because you have each other to support, you have each other to grow with, you have each other to bring up and help each other. And then when you take that and apply that to a community that are also all working together, that also compounds, that also multiplies. We need more togetherness. We don't need more separation. We don't need more isolation. And for a long time, I have isolated. I have felt like I need to pull back from the world in order to heal and recover, to get my energy back, to stop being so exhausted with everyone's ideas and opinions and with the news and the media and everything just flooding you 24/7. When you take a step back, you realize how exhausting it all is. And then once you acknowledge that exhaustion, you feel like you have to rest, and rest is best done in isolation. But after you rest, the steps then have to be to find a path forward. It has to be to find a solution, to find a way of living that brings people up and not brings people down, that brings people together and not splits them apart, because we really can do so much together. All of us together. Even just imagine the couple of people that you're close with, even if you only have a few, you only have 1, 2 or 3. Together, if you really pulled all of your resources together, all of your energy, all of your creative thought, all of your ability and strength, think of what you could accomplish. And think of how hard you are working as an isolated unit, how much you have to try to do. If we all did that together, if we all had people to support and to grow and to help, none of us would be as tired as we are. None of us would feel like we're working our lives away. None of us would feel like the entire burden of just existing and surviving would rest on our shoulders. Because even way back when in the hunter-gatherer days, they had each other. They had support. They didn't think, oh, if I don't buy this food, I'm going to starve because I don't have any other income, and I'm going to lose my flat, and I'm going to have nowhere to live, and I can't build anywhere to live. They would have the people of their tribe, their village, their community to pitch in, to help, to support. So when one person couldn't find food, another could. We are designed and supposed to have community. We are supposed to have relationships with other humans of all different sorts. Instead of focusing on independence, we need to focus on community. Thank you for listening.